Trump is in a lot of trouble right now when it comes to money, thanks to the massive judgments that have come against him in the past few months. And now even his best remaining bet at getting an infusion of new cash is under threat as well, because the co-founders of former President Donald Trump's media company have filed a lawsuit earlier this week claiming that Trump and other leaders at the company had schemed to deprive them of their stake at the company that could potentially be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, they claim that initially they had an 8.6% stake in the Trump Media and Technology Group, but because of the actions of Trump and other execs there, that had been watered down to less than 1%. And with a big merger coming up potentially later this year, they really care about the difference between those numbers. And the lawsuit makes that merger potentially more difficult, or at the very least might delay it. And that is big trouble for Donald Trump, because he wants the Trump Media Group to merge with Digital World Acquisition, because when that happens, he potentially could cash out and make a ton of money. And we're gonna break down how much money. But first, on the lawsuit, this is Mr. Moss, Mr. Litinsky. They had originally been contestants on The Apprentice. But back in January of 2021, they went to Donald Trump and they talked about creating a social media company. And so this partnership was born from that. Earlier this week, though, in the Delaware Chancery Court, they claimed that Trump Media is trying to dilute their ownership stake in the company. Of course, Donald Trump is a majority shareholder. They're alleging that as a result of the scheme that Donald Trump is engaged in, he would gain even more control of the company, that new shares being produced would either go to Donald Trump or to his family members. That sort of family corruption by a politician is gonna be of a lot of interest to the Republicans in Congress, but they also say that they want board seats that they're entitled to that are now apparently being denied to them. And so why does this matter? In particular, why does it matter now? Well, Donald Trump, of course, owes well over $500 million when you combine the New York civil fraud lawsuit judgment as well as the E. Jean Carroll defamation judgment. That's a lot of money that he apparently doesn't have, at least not in a liquid form. He can sell his buildings potentially, but not necessarily for what he thinks they're worth. And that may not be fast, and he may not want to do that anyway. So if this merger actually went through, if the legal path was cleared for it, post-merger, Mr. Trump would own 79 million shares in Trump Media. Based on the Digital World current share price of $39 a share, at least as of when we produced that graphic, his holding would be valued at $3 billion. He would become the largest shareholder in the merger and potentially could make him a lot of money off of that. But this legal trouble is already messing with the stock price. If the stock price goes down a good bit, then that's much less than $3 billion he would make. And by the way, just since the lawsuit was announced, the stock has gone down enough that the end total effect it would have on what he would get out of the merger has been reduced by about $300 to $400 million. Very similar to what he actually owes in his lawsuits. So that is a lot of money, both in total and potentially on the line, if the legal trouble ruins the prospects of the merger or delays it past when he needs to get the money.
We might have millions of people watching this show, but you can be the difference maker, because we just need 1% of our audience to be paid members, and then this show can be around forever. So you can make that difference. Click join now.
There are other lawsuits and there are other wrinkles to this, but Farron, I want to give you a chance to weigh in. This is happening at the exact worst time for Donald Trump.
It absolutely is. And I mean, honestly, based on the agreement that they had, just legally speaking, Litinsky and Moss, they've got it in the bag. Like 100%, you've got this in writing, you're good to go on that. As you mentioned, there's two other lawsuits, one in which Trump Media and Technology is a plaintiff, another in which they're a defendant. So these three competing lawsuits, all of the evidence that the SEC ignored about potential insider trading and illegal collusion between the two parties prior to the announcement of the acquisition, and they're still letting it go through. This thing is plagued with legal problems and has been from the start. But the bigger thing I want to point out is the fact of how stupid the stock market is. How in the hell is this company that is just a half, baked Twitter knockoff, how is this worth billions of dollars? Because that is the only entity of Trump Media and Technology that Digital World is trying to absorb. So you have one thing that doesn't have a revenue model. It doesn't have income at all. How is it worth $3 billion other than the stock market saying, oh no, it's worth $3 billion? It's all made up. It's all fake. It's all phony, and it's utter insanity to me.
Now, Farron,
it is all fake.
Really fast, Sharon, I do want to fact check you. I've been on Truth Social. They have ads. They're all very close-up shots of an aging human body with fungus growing on it. So clearly they are selling some ads. I think they also sell like disaster seeds, and maybe you could purchase gold, weird conspiratorial old person stuff. But anyway, there is some money there at least. But Sharon, what were you gonna say?
They don't cover monthly expenses, we know that.
That's also true.
I think Barron's right. It's all fake. And as he was going through everything, the evidence and what could happen, I started to get sad thinking about if Trump gets elected, he will get rich. He'll get all the money and the judgment will go his way, or it'll just go away altogether and more things will be rammed through. It doesn't need to be real. Why even bother to draw up a contract with this guy? I mean, they were on The Apprentice. They sat up close and personal and they wanted to cash in. I don't really feel sorry for them, but you should expect now that if you go into business with Donald Trump, you're gonna get screwed. He's gonna get richer and you're gonna get screwed.
Look, I'm glad that we're talking about this, but I'm also glad that you turned to sort of the inherent ridiculousness of all of this. Because that's immediately where my brain went too. Truth Social has 9 million total signups over years. God only knows how few of those are actual humans that are actually engaging with each other on this platform. It has not taken off. I've literally never heard a person talk about being on it, and I suspect that I never will. But as you pointed out, somehow, thanks to the Supreme Court, thanks to the stock market, it gets to be worth billions of dollars. And honestly, this feels to me, as a person who's not a lawyer, I'm not a financial expert or anything, this just feels like Trump NFTs times 1,000. This feels like a way that the system has set up to transfer incredibly large sums of money from one wealthy person to another and evade campaign finance. That's all it feels like to me. How could any investor expect that you buy this thing and you're gonna make money off of it? That is on its face ridiculous, and yet billions of dollars are lining up. This digital world has been fighting for like a year and a half to buy this thing that there's no reason that anyone would want to buy. You wouldn't pay $1,000 for it. It's utterly ridiculous. And it's not even just Trump. Earlier this week, Elon Musk made these insane claims about the Tesla Roadster, that it's gonna fly, and it's gonna have jet engines, and it's 0 to 60 in less than 1 second. Immediately, the internet is flooded with articles that are just like, Elon Musk says Roadster's coming next year. He does that constantly. He just tweets a thing, there's no basis in fact, it doesn't come true. He announced that the Roadster was gonna be released back in 2017. He said it would be released in 2020. People put down deposits 8 years ago for that car. He can just lie, and why wouldn't he? Nobody ever fact checks any of these claims. Nobody goes back a year ago to the things he was saying and says, well, that wasn't actually true. And yet, if you look at Tesla's stock price, it was juiced by the claim he made with no evidence that was immediately picked up by the media. And anyone who could have known he was about to do that, if you'd bought Tesla stock, a few days later, you would have made a nice little chunk of change. And yet they can manipulate the stock market to their own benefit anytime they want. It's ridiculous that the system is set up in this way. There's effectively no oversight. That's what I'm saying. And I don't know why the right, filled with these politicians and media figures who talk about how populist they are, and the MAGA world full of voters who are so against the elites, don't care that any of this is happening.